All right, everybody, welcome to our February Educational Cafe. We're letting some people get all the way joined in and getting their audio set up so everybody can hear. All right. Looks like we're all set up. So, Dorothy, if you would like to take it away, go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for another Educational Cafe here at Heading Home. I'm Dorothee Otero. I'm the Housing Director here at Heading Home. And if you've been watching our previous segments, you will have learned about the Albuquerque Opportunity Center, our Street Connect program, learned a little bit about our furniture and donations activities, our core values, I believe was our last presentation. And then I've also told you previously about the Families Heading Home program. So today I want to tell you about another program that is within the housing division, and that is the Albuquerque Heading Home initiative that started in 2011. So just to clarify, whereas Heading Home, the agency, started in 2004, the Albuquerque Heading Home initiative started in 2011. Which makes this our 10th anniversary, and that's really, really exciting. And I like to say that I started my journey with Heading Home officially in the summer of 2011 as their first housing coordinator for the Albuquerque Heading Home initiative. So what exactly is the Albuquerque Heading Home initiative? So in 2010, we were approached by the 100,000 Homes campaign, which was an initiative of Community Solutions. And a Community Solutions design was to help 186 communities around the country to house 100,000 chronically homeless individuals into permanent supportive housing. And so we started the initiative on one of the coldest, most wintry nights in January of 2011 that we had. I think it was like 40 years. So it was a very cold night. And there is a little clip from a documentary. And so I have to tell you that the audio is not the best, but we will share the link to the documentary that this came from. And I really encourage you to watch that when we're done with this. So bear with us on the audio, but here's the clip.
The winter storm continues to impact most of New Mexico, bringing dangerous cold conditions, also heavy snow in many locations, and of course the wind as well.
Of course, as we mentioned, there's a human factor. If you're going to be out here, the wind is going to go through. No matter how many layers you're wearing and any exposed skin, it's going to be dangerous.
All right, are you okay answering just a few questions? And we can get this survey done? See if we can find you a good, safe, warm place to stay. Thank you for doing this, by the way.
It affects us, actually, probably more than it affects them. You know, these are individuals who are living in a really difficult situation. So do you have any medical concerns that you know of? Anything going on? No? Okay.
And maybe it was a blessing in disguise for us for Albuquerque Heading Home, the fact that those first days were so bitterly cold. It was all over the news. Our community was very, very aware how cold it was because they were feeling it. And then we could have the discussion about homelessness at the same time, and they could see the pictures, they could see the photographs and the news coverage of people living in just abysmal conditions in our community during some of the worst weather we've seen in decades. And as difficult as that was, that I think was part of the catalyst for Heading Home.
More than 100 volunteers, including Mayor R.J. Berry, are out in Albuquerque streets right now, searching for the city's most vulnerable homeless. News 13's Dave Romero live in the Newsplex with more on this, David.
Yeah, the first phase of Albuquerque Heading Home started this morning well before the crack of dawn. Starting at 3:30, members from the mayor's office, including the mayor himself, were joined by over 100 volunteers to head out and find 75 of Albuquerque's chronic homeless. The goal is to have about 20 teams canvass 20 areas around town and find where the homeless may be sleeping. From there, they'll be surveyed to determine how long they've been on the street and what health problems they face.
Any other household members stay with you last night? Any household members at all? Okay.
My dog.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's the way my dog is. Let's see here. Do you have a disability? Disability can include physical, mental health, substance abuse issues.
HIV or AIDS?
Been exposed a few times, but I always come up negative.
How many times have you gone to the emergency room? 3 or 4 times. Okay.
So yeah, so as you heard in the clip, I hope you heard that piece where they said we identified 600 individuals and we selected the top 75 individuals to house during that first year. So the Albuquerque Heading Home initiative was based on the collective impact model. And by way of definition, collective impact describes an intentional way of working together and sharing information for the purpose of solving complex problems. And homelessness does not mean that you can just put somebody in an apartment and hope that they do well. It is just so much more complex. And so to address the complexity of homelessness in Albuquerque and make some changes within our system delivery, we chose to implement this particular model. So we pulled together a group of nonprofits who all shared the vision of housing those individuals who were considered the most vulnerable and the most chronically homeless in our community. And so Heading Home was the backbone agency in this model. We had agencies such as Supportive Housing Coalition, HopeWorks, Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless, and approximately 20 other agencies that came and they joined us as partners in this effort. And so this was also the beginning of what is now known as the coordinated entry system, which now prioritizes individuals based on different factors such as age, length of homelessness, and their vulnerabilities and medical conditions. And so one of the people that I want to talk about was Jim, who was one of the first 75 that we wanted to house. But what happened was between the time that we identified Jim in this blizzard in January and the time that we needed to find him again to get him housed during a couple of months later, we weren't able to find him and a lot of other people that we had identified. So we worked closely with a team called the Coast Team that was operated by APD. And so I want to just pull in a little clip about how we located Jim.
Stay. Are you doing okay today? Are you staying out of the heat?
Yes, sir. I was going to the hospital.
What's up, bud? Because if it is you, Jim, then we can get some stuff going. Okay?
Does this have anything to do with the mayor?
Yes, sir.
And there he was. And so that brings us such enthusiasm and inspiration to keep on moving on for the next person, the next Jim.
Yeah, I signed up at noonday, I think it was.
Yep. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm just getting over a stroke that I just had.
You just had a stroke? And you're sleeping on the streets?
I was in the hospital for almost a month.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Jim. Are you feeling okay now? Are you on medications?
I was on medication, but I can't afford the...
So are you okay spending a little bit of time with me here this morning?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Somebody like Jim who didn't know to walk in the door that we were able to reach out and find. He had signed up for the program but had been then kind of lost in the system, and there he was sitting out on Civic Plaza. And that's an example of our coordination that we've not had in the past. All of the agencies now working together to actively look for these people and to reach out to them. So when we see him, it's very much somebody who wants some improvement in his life. He's ready to come in, but hasn't been given that opportunity.
Stay.
So that's how we located Jim. So Jim was successfully housed. In the improvement that we saw during that first year, I like to say was nothing but miraculous. So in February of 2011, we celebrated, in February of 2012, we celebrated the first anniversary of the Albuquerque Heading Home initiative. And so I want to show you one more clip about that anniversary celebration.
Yeah, we kind of have a theme today. The theme is promises made, promises kept. We're celebrating today, and we're making sure that people understand that this is an important project. But when we said we're going to house 75 people in a brand new program last year, there was a lot of people that didn't think we'd be able to get it done. And here we are today, and we've housed 76 individuals. So give yourselves a round of applause for that. So we've had a good first year. We really have. And I can tell you, as a mayor, I work on a lot of initiatives. We work on budgets, we work on public safety, we do lots of things that we're proud of to work on behalf of the citizens of Albuquerque. There's nothing that I'm more proud of as a mayor than this effort. And I'm really proud for a lot of reasons. I'm not proud of myself, I'm proud of our community. We had an opportunity to step up and make a big, big difference. And team with some people that are already out there making a big difference. We've been doing this for years.
And that was Jim within just a short year after he was housed. So, and again, I encourage you to see the entire documentary on YouTube. We'll have a link to that, and we'll also post a link after this educational cafe. It's just really worth watching. And we laughed earlier because we're all 10 years younger, and we just looked so good. So please watch that. There are so many other beautiful stories that are captured in that documentary, and so many people that I was just privileged to work with. And since we started the Albuquerque Heading Home initiative, we housed a total of 847 individuals to date. And so today I want to introduce you to one of those partner agencies that has been instrumental since day one in our ability to be able to house individuals. So the representative that's joining us today is Ms. Laura Chavez from the Supportive Housing Coalition of New Mexico. And as we celebrate our 10th anniversary, they celebrate their 25th anniversary. So with that, I'd like to introduce Laura, and I know we're having some technical difficulties getting her live, but there's a beautiful picture of her. And Laura, take it away.
Thank you so much, Dorothy, and thank you everybody for having me today. I think this is a really exciting topic, and thank you for that video. It was really touching, Dorothy. The part with Jody actually got me emotional. So it's just a really compelling video footage there that speaks to what we're all working towards each day. So thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited to recognize this amazing 10-year partnership. And yeah, we're also really excited to announce the 25th anniversary of Supportive Housing Coalition. As part of that history, I wish to also share that my colleague and fellow director, Lori Frappier, is also here in the meeting. Lori has senior tenure in the agency. So if you have any questions or wish to stroll further down memory lane with us, she can also chime in. So speaking of that history, Supportive Housing Coalition of New Mexico was founded in 1996. We were actually founded by a coalition of behavioral health providers who recognized at the time that we really just did not have the housing needed for people with mental health or behavioral health concerns who were also experiencing homelessness. We were actually founded, though, as an affordable housing developer. And to date, we currently own, manage, and also provide services at 7 different apartment communities across 3 counties in New Mexico. Those counties include Bernalillo County, of course, San Miguel County, and also McKinley County. These include mixed income tax credit properties, continuum of care project-based voucher programs, and also HUD 811 programming for people with special needs. We continue to still collaborate with all of our founding partners and have had the opportunity and pleasure to partner with more along the way. In 2005, we actually originally partnered with the city of Albuquerque to start the very first Housing First initiative in Albuquerque under Mayor Marty Chavez. We started with just 68 housing vouchers, and today I'm proud to say that we manage over 350 housing vouchers through various programs across all levels of government. So we're working with the city of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, the state of New Mexico, including MFA, as well as HUD. As Dorothy mentioned, in 2011, we partnered with Albuquerque Heading Home under Mayor Berry, and we to this day remain the largest permanent supportive housing provider in the city of Albuquerque. So again, my name is Laura Chavez, and at SHC, I am the Director of Community Housing. I currently oversee all 3 of our HUD permanent supportive housing programs. I oversee our Community Connections, Reentry and Reintegration program for those who are exiting incarceration. I oversee all of our City of Albuquerque permanent supportive housing contracts, including the Housing First program that we're discussing here today that we partner on within the Heading Home initiative. We also administer and I oversee linkages, permanent supportive housing in McKinley County, and I oversee all of our tax credit set-asides. Our partnership, our process with Heading Home starts with a referral for the Albuquerque Continuum of Care eligibility, which is via the Albuquerque Coordinated Entry System. Dorothy and I partnered directly to manage the intake between the entities, and then Supportive Housing Coalition completes the onboarding and orientation for new participants. That process includes coordinating case management with our affordable housing, our Albuquerque Heading Home partners, and also the screening for in-house service coordination, and that's based on the HUD self-sufficiency matrix. Service coordination doesn't substitute or replace case management. Rather, it's meant to complement case management in the fact that together we strategize appropriate supplemental supports, if you will. So any other gaps in services or opportunities to partner between our staff and the case management entities. So some examples of that might be that SHC, for example, provides welcome home baskets to our participants. In the last year, we have created and then hand delivered COVID care kits, for example. And we also partner with those same case management entities to determine if any participants are SOAR eligible. And all of the community housing department is SOAR certified and is able to represent SOAR cases for our participants. SOAR is Social Security Outreach and Access Recovery, so that we can expedite processes and applications for Social Security benefits for people that are experiencing homelessness or are at risk for homelessness that also have disabling conditions or co-occurring disorders. So concurrently with the service coordination and the case management partnership, we are then also identifying vacancies, working with landlords and property managers to get vouchers accepted, which is easier said than done. Supportive Housing Coalition manages all of the homeless management information data that a housing administrator is responsible for. And Supportive Housing Coalition also ensures that all of the vacant units, the housing that we're able to identify meets quality standards. So we perform housing quality inspections and unit approvals. And then Supportive Housing Coalition partners with Heading Home and our other providers to coordinate lease up and move in when our participants have been able to secure a home and have completed the lease. So thereafter, we partner with case conferencing. We're meeting on a regular basis and collaborating in any way we can to identify and address ongoing needs, but also work to support participants' self-directed goals. So around goals that they themselves identify that they wish to achieve. And this can sometimes be around basic needs, but also maybe education or vocational employment, training or opportunity, parenting, some domains such as that. Before I continue, does anybody have any questions or anything at this point? Okay. So Supportive Housing Coalition fosters housing stability, of course, and aims to decrease any returns to homelessness and also to reduce recidivism in the Community Connections program by utilizing a housing retention plan. So we work with all participants to address issues affecting housing, of course, partner with other entities in the community like Heading Home, HopeWorks, HCH, as well as our landlords and property managers. In an effort to further the core principles of the Housing First model, and also in line with harm reduction and trauma-informed care, Supportive Housing Coalition does not automatically discharge any participants from our program for lease violations or even evictions. We do our best instead to work through those concerns or issues via our own internal resources, but obviously through this collaboration with our partners, such as a Heading Home. But also we apply a strong application of policy and what regulations allow us to do so that we can kind of get creative with how we can maybe port people, transport them into other opportunities, other programs, or identify other supports and resources that they may be needed to help them with their housing stability and to get more grounded in their situations. While I'm on the topic of landlords, I'm also really excited to share a new program that Supportive Housing Coalition is rolling out in 2021. It's called the Property Partnership Program, and it's specifically aimed at partnering with landlords and property managers out in the community. So yes, there's a piece there around engagement and outreach and trying to get landlords and property managers to work with us, but also to foster a better understanding of housing programs and voucher programs, do a little bit of myth busting, if you will, provide educational opportunities, technical assistance and training for landlords. We're working on, with our resource development department, Lori Frappier and Valerie Chavez, we're working to roll out web-based supports where landlords and property managers can get tools and resources, but to also streamline processes around paperwork and processes like that. So really excited to kind of to explore as a community, with others in the neighborhood, others working around housing, anybody with a vested interest around partnering to ensure that we have some more vacancies out in the community, that landlords and property managers feel confident and have some trust in these programs. So that's kind of exciting to be rolling out an initiative that's centered a little bit more on the property partner piece. And I think with that, I'll just stand for any questions you may have or anything else anybody would like to add.
Yeah, and I think, Laura, you touched on two really important things, and that is one, the relationship that we have with the landlords. Because when I talk about complexities when somebody experiences homelessness, it's really to find the landlord that's just the right fit for that individual, somebody that understands what that person has gone through, somebody who understands that that person maybe has not been housed in many, many years and that they have special needs around that. And then also the other piece really being that coordination piece after we house someone to make sure that that person continues to have the support that they need in order to be successful with their housing. After you've experienced many, many years of homelessness, it's really difficult to get back into a home and know just what to do and know how to work with the landlord. And so to have that piece and say, hey, just because, something went wrong, you're not going to be discharged from the program. So let us help you through that and let us advocate on your behalf. And so I know Supportive Housing as well as Heading Home and the case managers that are contracted to provide the services. So we all know how to advocate for both sides because we understand the landlord's concerns. So we want to address their concerns because they're valuable to us and they're the most valuable resource that we can have in this whole housing effort. But also for the individual to learn what that looks like, what advocacy looks like, making sure that we balance what the client needs, what the tenant needs, and what the landlord is willing to do. So it's really, really important that we have that piece and people are not just automatically discharged from the program, but they're given that opportunity and we continue to support them. And like I said, making it a successful experience for them. So I think that's really, really important. So I don't know if we're at the point where we can entertain questions. Okay, I get a nod, so that means yes. So what questions do we have?
Well, I was going to say, if anybody has a question they'd like to type into chat, feel free to open it. If you're unfamiliar, the chat is a little bubble right at the bottom of the Zoom window. Just click it and it opens up. Or if you want to ask a question, just raise your hand and I can unmute you. However you want to do it, we'll make it work. Because my question was very, very, very thoroughly answered.
Oh, you had a question. Okay.
My question was about the landlords and working with landlords and finding landlords willing to work with the program. So.
Yeah, and
sorry, Nick, I just saw that in the chat.
No,
yeah,
I think that
between our
I got all the info I needed.
Yeah, between our agencies, we have developed this cadre of landlords who have been so supportive of these efforts, and they've worked with us. Many of the landlords have worked with us over all of these years. And we're always looking for new landlords to join us. And if somebody knows of a landlord and they think that they would have a unit available, have them contact Heading Home, or have them contact Laura at the Supportive Housing Coalition, and we'll be happy to get some information out to them so we can recruit them to become one of the landlords that we work with.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Well, I think that you guys were just too thorough. Nobody seems to have any questions. That seemed.
I saw something pop up.
Oh, I see Rosemary's raising her hand. 1 second. Rosemary, it's going to ask you to unmute yourself if you want to click unmute.
Okay. Yes, I just found some materials from the National Low-Income Housing Coalition that involving a request that they evidently spearheaded, but that's been signed on to by a whole lot of national organizations, asking the Biden, it was sent out in January, so I thought you folks might know what became of it. It was asking the Biden administration to rectify some of the limitations that the earlier CDC guidance for low-income housing, people who had housing crises because of the pandemic, to minimize the likelihood that they would be evicted. And it had to do with things like landlords accepting CARES vouchers as if they were regular cash. And so I'd like to pursue it if it hasn't been signed yet. But if it is something that that the Biden administration then responded to, then it would be something to know that they had changed the rules in a positive direction for the unhoused and for the tenants who are risking being evicted. So does anybody know what became of that? Or was that anything that your coalition was involved in or was made aware of?
Thanks a ton, Rosemary. Laura or Dorothy, do you have any input?
Dorothy, I don't know if you want to say something. I can add a little bit. So thank you, Rosemary. That's a great question. I'm vaguely familiar with some of the HUD and NLIHC, that's the National Low Income Housing Coalition, discourse, if you will, around the eviction moratoriums. And I do know that the Office of Public and Indian Housing, as well as the multifamily housing divisions within HUD, have been working respectively to address the different nuances, if you will, around moratoriums specific to income related to COVID. So, loss of income, whether it be direct or indirect. With direct, I mean, literally losing employment, for example, and therefore you're unable to pay rent. Indirect, for example, we had, let me think of how to say it, implications, if you will, around systems changes with income support division. So for example, people weren't getting their temporary assistance to needy families, cash assistance on time. Some people were affected with their Social Security benefits. Under that CDC guidance that HUD is now synthesizing, they have included the indirect sources of income under the moratorium. Now, when it comes to any other eviction issues, that are not related specifically to income, unfortunately, we are still lacking guidance. around how to navigate those situations. And to be really clear, the moratorium does not protect any residents or tenants from eviction unless it is directly related to income. So for example, they can still attempt to evict them on lease violations for multiple reasons. Unfortunately, in what we see, that can also just be the fact that they bring guests into their home, for example, and then a landlord will attempt to violate them for, quote unquote, unapproved occupants in the housing. So just to be really transparent, that's still where a lot of the issues lie. I would like to connect this to a local level where if we're tracking House Bill 111 or Senate Bill 27 and Senate Bill 28, you'll be looking at housing preservation as well as changes, of course, around the Uniform Owner-Resident Relations Act. And if you guys are not familiar, I'm happy to send out those links to an appropriate person that can get them out. Otherwise, you can, of course, go to nmlegis.gov and look it up. But those are two very important pieces of legislation that will affect us here locally, not just around the moratoriums, but also around landlords and property managers' ability right now to decline vouchers as a source of payment. So locally, I would also keep my eye on that. Rosemary, I do expect under the new Secretary of Housing and Urban Development that we will see some pretty specific changes and amendments to some recent legislation around housing, access to housing and equitable access to housing that occurred in the last 4 years.
Great, that's a thorough answer. Thank you, Laura. I have one more question, and it's from Anna. And she asks, how can community members, especially youth, get involved and support your work? And that's for either Dorothy or Laura.
So once some of the restrictions are lifted as far as volunteerism is concerned, we're still under the restrictions where we're not able to have individuals come into our programs, into our buildings, or support our programs. Once some of those restrictions are lifted, we'll be again welcoming volunteers of all ages. We sometimes have parents who bring in some younger children. We certainly welcome them. We would welcome youth who would like to be involved in. We have so many different opportunities, especially at the West Side Emergency Housing Center, where we just serve over 300 people right now, and that number is going to increase once the restrictions have eased up a bit. So there will be other opportunities coming up. I work actually closely with A New Day, so I'm in close contact with them, and so we would welcome them or any youth group really that decides that they want to volunteer once we do not have the restrictions on how we can get volunteers involved in our programs. So thank you for that question.
Dorothy, may I add on to that as well?
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's a great question, Anna. I would just say that not just youth specific, but anybody, as Dorothy mentioned, that's interested. We also have proximity in our roles to various committees, right? So as Dorothy mentioned, Supportive Housing Coalition does also, have a hold on some of that volunteerism around COVID safety. And if you did have questions, though, of course, you can reach out to us, at Supportive Housing Coalition. You can email me directly or, contact our website. But in the interim that we're not able to host volunteers, we have proximity to different committees, work groups, some steering committees. And so if anybody wants to reach out to me directly, my email is lchavez, like my name, at shcnm.org. I'd be happy to point you in that trajectory. There's also at Supportive Housing Coalition, a client advisory board, and it can be for current participants, but also anybody that has lived through homelessness. And same email if you're interested in perhaps participating in a client advisory position. And then the last thing I would maybe add in terms of youth, not sure what age group you're curious about there, if we're looking at, kids in general or just young adults, but there is something called the McKinney-Vento Act. And so anybody that's enrolled in school in a public school district could also get involved through their school district to find out what other housing initiatives, supports, or volunteerism are needed under McKinney-Vento, because that specifically addresses housing and homelessness for students.
Great, thank you. And so
Awesome.
I saw a question regarding future educational cafes. So we have these educational cafes once a month. And Kim will kill me if I get this wrong, but it is the third Thursday of the month at 4:30. And so I hope that you will continue to join us. The next educational cafe will focus on the Westside Emergency Housing Center. And so we'll have a representative from the WEC to tell you a little bit more about their operation out there and familiarize you with that. Nick, are there any other questions?
No, I don't see any other questions. I'd just like to say, if you have any other, if you want more information about the organization, you can always check us out on our website at headinghome.org. All of our past educational cafes are on our YouTube page. So you can see the backlog. We've done a handful of these now over a whole bunch of conversations, and that's really it. So you can take us on out.
Well, and I want to thank Laura and Lori for joining us today. And again, happy anniversary, happy 25 years. So glad that we're partnering with you for the last 10 years. And I look forward to many, many more years. So thanks, guys.